Hi, this is chapter 1 of Anatomy and Physiology, and I'll be looking at Introduction to Human Anatomy. Now, what is anatomy and physiology? Now, anatomy means structure and physiology means function. So there is this theme that will say that structure determines function. So anatomy determines physiology. And so I ask my students, why do they ask you to run to emergency if your temperature rise beyond 104? And the reason they say that is because proteins are only functional when they are at three-dimensional shape. All right. So if there's anything that affects that shape, then they are going to lose their function. Right now, so high temperature will, so the three-dimensional shape is because they are coiled and folded on each other, which is due to bonds that form between them. So high temperature will break those bonds. All right. Now, when the high temperature break the bonds, then the protein becomes linear. When proteins are at their linear state, we say they have lost their nature, and that's what we call denaturation. And so at that stage, they are no longer functional. All right. So once they lose their structure, they lose their function. Now, so anatomy determines physiology, structure determines function. You know also as well that what we call post-rate cancer or post-rate challenges, anything that comes with post-rate, it starts to begin when the post-rate begins to enlarge. All right. So enlarging of the structure or enlargement of the structure affects the function of the prostate. All right. So anatomy determines physiology. So anatomy is the structure of our body, um, and physiology is how the body functions. Now, anatomy is divided into gross anatomy. We have gross anatomy, we have microscopic anatomy. Gross anatomy is the same as macroscopic anatomy, anatomy that you can study with your naked eyes. All right. So when we get to the lab or we get to study, we look at the head and neck. That is a kind of gross anatomy. So like the region anatomy, you're looking at the head and neck, you're looking at the upper limb, you're looking at the lower limb. Looking at the neck, the thorax, the abdomen, those are regional anatomy. That is to study anatomy looking at regions. Then we have systemic anatomy in the case where we study systems. And that's what you're going to be doing in AP2 when you're going to be studying endocrine system, cardiovascular system, reproductive system, urinary system, all of those systems, urinary system, all of those systems, they are lymphatic system, immune systems, they are systemic anatomy, and that's what you do in AP2. Then we have the surface anatomy, which is what dermatologists must have a very good, dermatologists and surgeons must have a very good understanding of to know where to cut based on the surface. All right, now we have microscopic anatomy, which is the kind of anatomy that you require a microscope for because they are quite small and you cannot see them with your naked eyes. So those two categories are histology and cytology. Histology involves study of tissues and cytology involves study of cells. All right. We also have developmental anatomy, which is the study of development from the fertilization up to adulthood. We have radiographic anatomy, which some of you are going into sonography, some of you are going into radiology, some of you, so we use X-ray in such notes and CT scan, all of those are radiographic anatomy. Pathological anatomy deals with, anytime you hear pathology, you are looking at changes that happen in body structure, which is what we call disease, right? There are changes that happen and affect the normal functioning of the body. So you have pathophysiology, you have histopathology. Then physiology, we have different segments of physiology as well. We have the neurophysiology that deals with the nervous system, the brain, spinal cord, anything that has to do with the function of such region. Then endocrinology deals with the function of the endocrine system, how hormone regulates reproduction, all this menstrual cycle, ovulation, how hormone regulate all of that. Cardiovascular system, from the word cardiovascular, you see cardio there, which means heart, and you see vascular, which means blood vessels. So it just simply study how the blood flows in the blood vessels and as it pumps from the heart. So that's cardiovascular physiology. So it's inside cardiovascular physiology that you talk about the blood pressure, how the increase in blood volume leads to increase in blood pressure. The reduction of the constriction of the blood vessels leads to increase in blood pressure. Low blood volume leads to hypotension because it's going to reduce the pressure of the blood that flows from the heart and pass through the blood vessels. Then we talk about immunology, which is how the body protects itself, defend itself against any disease or any external impact. Now, we have respiratory, which deals with respiration. And when you're thinking of respiration, you think of the lungs, all right? And we have renal, which is the kidney, right? Talks about the function of the kidney. We have exercise, talks about the changes that happen in our system when we exercise. And I ask people, when you say you want to burn some calories and you have to do some exercise, what happens? The only thing that exercise does for you that increase the calories that you burn, it's simply that you breathe in and breathe out more. The more you breathe in and out, you're breathing in, you are getting more oxygen in. You're breathing out, you are getting more CO2 out. And how does that happen? This oxygen you're breathing combined with carbon in the glucose that is inside your system. So oxygen plus carbon, CO2. We'll talk about that more when I'm talking about cellular respiration. All right. Now we also have pathophysiology, which I talked about earlier. Pathology, disease, physiology, function. So functional changes that happen when disease is present in the disease state. Now reproductive looks at how fertilization happen, how the reproductive system happen. So it goes from ovulation, fertilization, formation of the gamete. When the gamete is formed, formation of the zygote, how zygote is produced for fertilization, how the zygote starts to develop, form morula, cleavage happens, all of those processes. Now, this shows you the organization of human organism, human body, and I would do a very quick run through this in a way, while I'll still be careful about time. Now, the smallest level of organization is a atom. All right, so we have the atom, we have the chemical level. Atom level is when you talk about hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluoride, neon, sodium, magnesium, aluminum, silicon, phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine, argon, potassium, and calcium. Those are the first 20 elements, and that is what we have when we are looking at atoms. All right. Then we talk about the chemical level. The chemical level is where we are talking about chemicals. So you think about when atoms combine together to form some chemicals. So like water now, it's part of it. Oxygen molecule will be part of that. Hydrogen molecule will be part of that. Sugar molecule will be part of that. All of those will be part of those chemical level. Now, the next level we get through after we go from chemical level is that we have the cellular level there. Now, so in some organization, you are going to see where we talk about the organelles. All right, the chemicals lead to large molecules, then leads to organelles, which are the organelles that you see inside of cell. You have mitochondria, you have the Golgi apparatus, you have pericytosome, you have lysosome, ribosome, endoplasmic reticulum. All of those are organelles. Then you're going to have cells. All right, cells. You have red blood cells, you have white blood cells, you have smooth. You have some muscle cells, nerve cells. You have cells the neurons, the nerve cells, neurons. All right, so all of those are cells. Then you're going to come from cells that work together give rise to tissues. All right, so you have the muscle tissues, you have the cardiac tissues, you have the connective tissues. All right, so I call it semen, connective tissues. C is connective tissues, M is muscle tissues, E is epithelial tissues, and then the N is nervous tissues. All right, then we have the organ. After tissues from organs, so you have the urinary bladder, you have the heart, you have the lungs, you have the eye, you have the kidney. All of those are organs. Then the organ form together to form system. So now when you're thinking of system, you talk about the cardiovascular system, which is made up of the organs, the blood, the heart, and the blood vessels. Those are organs there. Think about the urinary system. You think about the predominant organ there, which is the kidney. All right. So those are organs. Then you have, those are systems rather. Then you have the organism, which I'm an example of an organism. You are also an organism. All right. Now, I have an acronym that I use for this, for organ system. Let me see if I can still. It's reasonably cool. Maybe not perfect, but reasonably cool. Let me pull it up. Let me pull it here. So my acronym for organ system, the organ system is RED monks theme. So I was driving through a street one day when I was going to teach this chapter, and I was thinking of how can I make my student remember the organ systems. Then I saw a street name that looked like red something, and that was what brother is. All right. So the red monks, and I was thinking of this as monkey, and I thought, okay, what other way can I use for monkey? And I thought, okay, monks. All right. So red monks thing, the red. Think about the red as respiratory system. E is endocrine, D is digestive, M is muscular, U is urinary, N is nervous system, C is cardiovascular, S is skeletal, F is female reproductive, I is integumentary, L is lymphatic, and M is male reproductive. Now, it's possible I may not have mentioned some of them, but I think I've covered all. So I'm going to write it here, respiratory system. E is endocrine. D is digestive. M is muscular. U is urinary. N is nervous. Don't be nervous. C is cardiovascular. Skeletal. Female reproductive. Now, my students will need to know this. You must be able to list this. These may be like things I'm going to ask you for for when we have, for exams, short essay questions. Those are things that could come out. All right. And male reproductive. All right. So those are the systems. All right. So I just say read Monk's film. Let's go. Now, these are the systems. I will touch base on them very fast for time's sake. So I will not focus too much details on them anyway because of time. All right, let's go. So This is integumentary system. An integumentary system is your skin. Now, the issue with integumentary system is that sometimes people think it's just the skin. Now, because the challenge of that, what caused that is because the skin by itself is also called integument. So another name for skin, integument. All right. So skin is integument, and so sometimes people think it is the only integumentary system. No, one organ does not make the integumentary system. It's going to be coupled with a lot of, other organs. On the minimum, you will have at least two organs that make the integument, that make a system. All right. So integument is skin, but integumentary system is not the skin alone. The only thing is that the largest organ you have in your body, and obviously in the integumentary system, is the skin. All right. So the skin is the largest organ in our body. That's the skin everywhere, right? And your hair is also part of the integumentary system. Your nails is part of the integumentary system. You have sweat glands there. And what does the skin does? It protects you. The skin protects you. The skin helps to regulate temperature. The skin is actually the one that is a receptor that tells that the temperature is high or the temperature is low. All right. So it helps to regulate body temperature. It helps to provide sensory information. Now, if I touch your hair, even for people that have very long hair, if I touch your hair behind you, you're going to know that something is touching here because there are Merkel cells there that tells you that something is there. The skeletal system is also everywhere. All right. That's what is the bone. It's everywhere in your body. It's the bone, cartilages, some ligaments, and you have bone marrow there. Majorly what it does is also protection, gives you shape, and it stores calcium and some other minerals there. Muscular system, muscle, you can see the guy. Muscles, you have muscles there, tendons there, and majorly your muscles are responsible for movement. It also protects and helps to support you. Muscle is actually what is generating heat when you are exercising. You know, when you are exercising and you feel like you're producing heat, is because the muscles are working. The nervous system, think about the nervous system, the brain. The brain, when you think about the nervous system, there are two predominant organs that makes the nervous system, even though they are not the only one. That's why we call them the central nervous system, which I'm going to talk about later in chapter 13, 12, 13, 14. All right. And that's the brain and spinal cord. But they have nerves. So they are spinal nerves, they are cranial nerves. We call them nerves, right? Then sense organs, they are part of the nervous system. Now, majorly, what do? They direct impulse, they direct immediate responses to stimuli, and they also help to coordinate and moderate activities that happen within your systems. All right. Now, endocrine system, that's the guy that works with nervous system. So there are two guys that are responsible for major activities in our system, which is what we call homeostasis, and that is the brain, the nervous system, and the endocrine system. All right, the endocrine system, you see that guy here, pituitary gland is the master gland. That's the guy that works with the brain, with the hypothalamus, to make sure that every other glands are doing their job. So it's a supervisory or master gland. So we have the thyroid gland that is responsible for metabolism. And if if the thyroid gland goes on break, then you go on break. One of my students says that means you go higher. When thyroid gland metabolism activity shuts down, then there's no more activity in the system. The system goes higher. Pancreas, it's the guy that regulates blood sugar. Then you have suprarenal gland, you have gonads, you have endocrine tissues. I'm still going to talk about all of that later. Functions, obviously, it determines the hormonal activities, endocrine glands. All right. So that's what is responsible for changes that happen in organs. Puberty, metabolic activities, all of those are determined by endocrine gland. Now, cardiovascular, that is the guy that is responsible for your breathing in and out. All right. So your heart, your blood vessels, and blood. When you say there's high blood pressure, it's because there's something messing up with the cardiovascular system. All right. So if there's no cardiovascular system, when you take medication, the medication will not circulate through your body. because those medications circulate through the blood. All right. When you eat, the part of your body will not get food supply. They will not get nutrients if there's no blood flow. So the reason we exercise is the more we exercise, the easier it becomes for nutrient circulation to happen in your body. And that's why you notice that sometimes you have muscle pain in some area, and the moment you exercise, you notice that the place gets better. It gets better because exercise is going to circulate nutrient, oxygen to that area, and the area becomes reverberated. All right. Now we have the lymphoid system, which is the lymphatic system that helps to circulate lymph nodes, limbs, and then you see the spleen is part of it. It's part of the major organ. You have the thymus there. You have the thymus there, which is the one that makes T cells. We'll talk about that later. We have lymphatic system. We have lymphatic vessels. We have lymph nodes. We have tonsils. Now, majorly what it does is that is the guy responsible for your immune activity. All right. Now, respiratory. This is the guy responsible for your breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. So you look at the organs that are responsible there. You think about the nasal cavity, think about the sinuses, think about the larynx, trachea, bronchi. So we have the nasal, the the trachea, rather, the bronchi. You have the lungs, the alveoli, which is where gaseous exchange happens, and it has a very large surface area. All right. Digestive system. So you think about the digestive system, which begins straight with your teeth, breaking down the food. Then it goes in tongues. We have the pharynx. So you have the nasopharynx, the oropharynx, and the laryngopharynx. All right. We have the esophagus, which is where food travels through peristalsis and it goes into your stomach. Then you have that's small intestine, large intestine. You have the liver, the gallbladder, that make bowels. Then you have the pancreas, making pancreatic juices. All right. Now you have the urinary system. The urinary system is the guy that helps to produce urine, and it makes about 1.72 liters per day if you calculate it. All right. Now, so you have the kidneys, the ureter, the urinary bladder, you have the urethra. Those are portions of the urinary system. So you see that there, the kidney, the ureter, and then you have the urinary bladder, then the urethra. All right. On the male reproductive system, obviously, you have the testes there, which is usually outside of the body and not inside because of temperature. All right. Epididymis is there, ductus deferens, seminal vesicle, prostate gland, penis, and the scrotum. All right. Then you have the female reproductive system. You have the ovary. The ovary is what makes the egg. Then you have the uterine tubes, which is actually what we call fallopian tube, which is where fertilization takes place, right? You have the uterus. That's where the fetus will be implanted. All right. Then you have the vagina, which is the pathway for sperm sperm to travel. You have labia majora, labia minora. You have the clitoris. You have the mammary gland. All right. All right. Characteristics that you see in human body. You have metabolism, responsiveness, movement, growth, differentiation, and reproduction. Now, differentiation as its way, it's the same thing as specialization. All right. Differentiation simply means when the cell decide to grow better by specializing. So when somebody is a nurse and decide to specialize in family medicine, decide to specialize in gerontology, that is specialization. The same thing, cells decide to go from their regular stem cells to become specialized cells. That is differentiation. All right. Now, metabolism. Now, I'm beginning to talk about things that are very integral now. Now, metabolism simply means addition of different activities in your body, chemical changes in your body that involve either breaking down large molecules or building small molecules. Now, think about it. Some of us have lactose intolerance, and lactose is simply a disaccharide. Think about it as a large molecule that is in milk. The lactose is not large for your mouth, but it's large for your cells. All right. Now, so when your cells when lactose gets into your system, it needs to be broken down into smaller molecules. All right. That is catabolism. And I call it catabolism. All right. So I call it catabolism instead of catabolism. Now, don't forget the name is catabolism. It's just my way of saying don't forget it. And I call it catabolism. Catabolism. All right. Now, catabolism is just another way of saying catabolism to cut large molecules into smaller molecules. So it's going to cut lactose into glucose and galactose. All right. And your cells understand those smaller molecules. Then we have the second part of anabolism. And I also call this adbolism. All right. Now, don't call it adbolism when your professor asks you on the exam. It's just my way of saying don't forget it. Now, it's simply to add add smaller molecules together, which we call monomers, to form polymer. So think about it. The reverse of what I just talked about is if we are adding glucose together and galactose to form lactose. That is anabolism, adbolism. So all of the process together is what we call metabolism. So metabolism simply involves anabolism and catabolism. Now, changes that happen in our system is either we're talking about differentiation, which is what I gave a hint of earlier, or we are talking about growth. Now, differentiation is what happened once an egg and sperm unite, they form a single cell that we call zygote. So egg and sperm gametes form zygote. The zygote is going to start differentiating, and differentiating at that point is to undergo several divisions. We call it mitotic division. And when it keeps, so the one cell undergo division, form 2 cells, undergo division, form 4 cells, undergo division, form 8 cells, then 16 cells. We call it morula, and that continues over time, and that is what we call differentiation. All right. Then growth is when there are lots of mitotic division, which is going to produce billions of cells. All right, from that single one cells. Now, when we say growth in biology, when we say growth in cells, we are thinking about the cells increasing in number, not necessarily the largeness in quotes. The number is what is going to now lead to increase in size, right? Okay. Now, homeostasis, which is the great deal that we are talking about today. Homeostasis. Now,